Drive. Now we're going to be talking about gardening and gardening design with kind of an east-west flair, with the east part being Texas and the west being California. I'm joined by Flora Grubb, who is a designer and a nursery owner in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome to Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
You're an Austin native, so you have Texas roots. And
I grew up here. My family came here when I was about 5, and I was here until I moved to San Francisco.
Okay, so you have your start for gardening was here in the Austin area.
Yes, I started out when I was a little kid. My dad would buy me little 6-packs of petunias and gladiolas, and I would try to keep them alive. But I kept gardening and started really gardening as a teenager, and fell in love with it then.
Yeah. I understand you used to pull in your neighbor's weeds for $5 an hour.
I did, and other favorite activities included breaking into the botanical gardens at night, jumping the fence on the full moon in order to see the gardens, which I loved.
Okay. A little bit of an outlaw.
A little bit of an outlaw.
That's great.
Yeah, still.
But you come back to Austin often and enjoy the hill country and the Blanco area.
I love
That's
it here
awesome.
so much, and I come at least once a year.
I have to ask, what did you carry from your experience in Texas into California in terms of gardening?
Well, mostly the conservative views towards water use and being raised gardening in Texas during a drought and being a young gardener. Of course, I didn't have an irrigation system or sprinkler system. So I would have to just stand there with the hose to keep anything alive. And when you have that experience of standing there with a hose and just dumping the water onto the garden, you really get a sense of how much you're using.
Exactly.
And so water conservation becomes a practicality. And it remains so for me in the Bay Area. San Franciscans are not very good waterers, and if you give them plants that need a bunch of water, they will kill them like that. So helping them to select choices that are going to fend for themselves a little bit more and not need as much water is a practicality as well as, philosophy.
Well, speaking of fending for yourself, a lot of Texas gardeners, when they go to California, get very jealous.
Yeah.
Because they can see gardens flourishing with almost no attention being paid to them.
It's envy making. It is. It's some really good gardening.
Right. For number one, you have soil.
Yeah, just right all over the ground. Yeah.
Right.
I know, and I was talking today to a friend on the phone, and I was saying, sometimes here they just have soil that things won't grow in, and my friend said, oh, I've never even really thought about that as an option. Like, mostly everything just grows right out of the ground. It can be a little heavy sometimes, but in general, the soil's it just works just fine.
Yeah.
You throw the plants into it, and then water them a little until they get established, and then everything kind of takes care of itself, which is just so much more challenging.
Right. And there are some similarities in that. In San Francisco, you have long periods without rain, right?
We have basically, once it stops raining, it's not going to rain again for another 5 or 6 months. And that means no rain at all, not intermittent rain. And that's not when we're in a drought. We just have a summer dry, winter wet climate, which means it rains and then stops altogether. So you can learn to garden with that, or you can try to garden against it, but it doesn't vary. Right,
and there's some advantages looking from our perspective, because there are a lot of plants that really like the cycle of hot and cold, and you have much more even temperature.
We have that very steady temperature that allows us to grow plants from the tropics, from the cloud forests, which is really fun, from all of the other Mediterranean climate zones of the world, and then some adapted stuff from our own deserts and from the African deserts. And so it's probably not to be ungracious and brag, but it's probably the most exciting combination of plants that you could grow just about anywhere.
Well, and you feature them beautifully in your nursery and in your garden designs, and the designs are spectacular. They strike me as being similar to some of the real great design being done here in Texas, in that there's a strong element of sculptural plants, a focus on low water use, but there's also a sense of movement and vitality and kind of an exuberance in the gardens.
Yes, I agree. And I think part of it is adhering to a lot of practicalities, which means that if you have a lot of big or medium-sized woody stuff that needs to be pruned all the time, you end up with some pruning challenges that most folks aren't up for. Even professional landscapers, many of them. So you see a lot of the grasses. There's a lot of crossover with like the Dasylirions that we see a lot here, or Sotals as you call them locally, and some of that stuff that provides that movement, but also the care needs are simpler than all the woody shrubs, which we could both use, but then require a more complicated care.
Right. Well, you know, I'm curious because, you know, you have a nursery, you have a base, you have people who wander in, and I bet they're wowed by what they see. What's some advice for those people who really want to try it on their own, who aren't maybe interested or can't afford to consult with a designer? What are some of the tips that you would give to an individual like that about how to plan for these kinds of beautiful, livable spaces that you create?
I think the first thing to do is not just wander into the nursery and grab whatever has a flower on it. Like, that's the worst way to start, right? So
that's how we all started, though, I think.
I know, it is, because you do have to go for what you love. If you try to grow something you don't love, you aren't going to get far. So starting with some images of gardens that you really like, and then trying to, making sure that those gardens are from your climate, and then trying to dissect what you see in those images in order to design your garden to come out like something that you're going to like. Right, which is kind of the opposite of grabbing a bunch of elements and trying to make them fit into your yard. Also, you know, seasonally you go into a nursery, and we all know we bring in the things with flowers on them. But if you just go into a nursery and buy the things with flowers on them, it's not a great way to design a garden. So thinking about looking at your neighbor's plants and figuring out what's going to work well in the space, and then going and asking for that particular plant. These days, of course, you can take a picture of it on your phone and take it in and say, what's this? How big is this going to get? Will this work for me? And that's a great way to start. And then really thinking about how you're going to use your garden, and hoping that you will use your garden.
Exactly.
So for us, for me, at home, that means, where is the sun, right? Because it tends to be a little cooler there in the bay, and I want to sit in the sun in the morning while I drink my tea, and I want to come home at the end of the day and sit in the sun and unwind. And here, obviously, we just swap that out. You're going to want to sit in the shade while you drink your coffee, and you're going to want to sit in the shade when you come home at night. So where is that shade going to be on your property? Make a place there for yourself. Don't take up all the space with plants. Make a place to be in the garden, so that some way to be in the garden other than standing up and gardening, because otherwise you'll get scared back into the house every time you have a moment to just be. Now, on the other hand, I don't love all these trends about putting all kinds of stuff in your garden. I don't really particularly care for outdoor kitchens. Not a big fan of having movie theaters and screens and all these things. I think we should be in our gardens. I think we should garden there. I think we should eat there. And I think we should relax there. And so making a place and a way to do all of those things.
I can't agree with you more. I think that it's so beautifully articulated. You know, gardens are a place to be, and a place to take in the beauty around you. Because the strength, the beauty, the real beauty of a garden is how it draws you out of yourself into the natural world.
That's so well said. Or into relationship. And allows you to benefit from these other living things that have so much to offer you once you tune into them. And if you're willing to take what they have, which is really just what we need, and particularly what us in urban environments need, which is just to let these things help us unwind. Help us cool out a little bit.
As my routine, second cup of coffee every morning, I go out and sit on my front porch, and whatever happens, happens. You know, just let the birds tell me how the day's going to be. You know?
And you know, sometimes with a pruner in hand, do I have my cup of tea so that I can mess with the garden and drink the tea at the same time. But that ritual for me of just sitting and gazing at the garden, for me, it's equally important in the wintertime when it's really, you really can't go out to be able to see out into the garden from inside, so that whatever's happening out there, you can still observe it, even if you're not going to run out there because it's too cold and it's too wet or whatever. But to still be able to enjoy it and to just gaze upon it. For me, it's very restorative.
Well, and you know, and there's something else you said. I just want to underscore how important this is. You said, look at pictures. You know, what I tell people is, if you want to create a great garden space, go look at them. And for the longest time, I used to teach a course on garden design, and I used these beautiful spreads from magazines and cut them out and, you know, scan them and project them, and people loved that. And it was always using practical examples from our area.
Yeah, and you got to watch where they're from, right?
Exactly.
Because a lot of us, the gardens of our hearts are from wherever we were raised, and so we'll try to recreate those gardens wherever it is we go. And so if you're not native to Texas and you come in with these East Coast gardens, you're just going to really drive yourself nuts trying to create something that's not possible. But once you can find gardens that you really love, either in magazine pictures of them, and then start aiming yourself towards what you're seeing.
Right. Well, Flora, we're going to have to wrap up on that note. Texas's loss has been San Francisco's gain.
Well, and who knows, maybe I'll come back someday.
That would be wonderful. Thank you for being a part of Central Texas Garden today.
Thank you so much.
All right. And coming up next is Daphne.